There's a big discussion, big debate about whether it makes sense for left activists to unmask right-wing extremists when they engage in violent behavior in some of these rallies and protests. Now, the topic is really about doxing, and so let's go through the details, and I'm really curious what you all think. In fact, we even have a poll on this. So, the topic was explored by the Washington Post. They profiled a specific incident involving an independent journalist by the name of Laura Jadid. And so she was at the MAGA march in DC in November when she was approached by a Trump supporter who was pretty aggressive, stepped on her toes, and was incredibly confrontational. In fact, we have a video showing you what that looked like. Let's take a quick look.
Hey, y'all, this is Portland Antifa Press right here. This one right here. What's up?
Please don't step on my foot.
How you doing? What's up? How you doing? All the way from Portland? It's your little MAGA.
Do not touch me.
MAGA. I'm not touching you.
Yes, you actually are. You definitely are, and I need you to stop.
Don't video me.
None of your friends would come.
I'm allowed to video.
Okay,
you're
well,
not
I'm allowed to be standing right
You absolutely are, but if you touch me,
what's up,
that's not
you
okay.
What's up? I can't wait to see you in the lobby again. What's up?
Is that a threat?
Are we coming?
What's going to happen to me in the lobby? Can you elaborate?
What's up? You keep recording. You ain't gonna do nothing. Keep recording. You ain't doing nothing. You ain't gonna do nothing. Keep recording. What are you gonna do?
Now, what followed is what has led to a debate that I think is worth having. So the man in the flag mask was quickly identified as Washington State resident Edward Jeremy Dawson by a local Antifa group. Twitter users Mining Public Records later released his address and phone number. The video was amplified by Christian Exu, a prominent anti-fascist activist who tweeted it out to his 50,000 plus followers. Now, Christian also included contact information for Dawson's employer. And I looked for that tweet and found it. And yeah, there are very specific details about who the employer is, how activists should call and let the employer know about Dawson's behavior. So Dawson ends up getting fired. Dawson's wife, Michelle, also uploaded a tearful self-shot video to Twitter announcing his firing. And later that month, she was asked to hand in her vest and badge at a Walmart in Battleground, Washington, where she worked as an online order fulfiller. She thinks that she was fired over her politics, but acknowledges that she had missed a substantial amount of work because of her back problems. So the question is, does this activism, doxing bad actors, dangerous or right-wing extremists work? Does it make sense? Do we support it? And I think this is a perfect topic for TYT Supreme Court. Uygur, you go first.
Okay, we're missing a couple of justices today, but all right. This is a complicated one. So first, I want to just give a quick background on what happened with that person recording. She then went back to her hotel room, but they were staying in the same hotel. That's why I had that reference to seeing her in the lobby, right? And she said she locked her door, deadbolted it, but couldn't sleep all night because she knows they're in the hotel and that, according to him, they're looking for her. Imagine how frightening that is. So keep that in mind as this guy cries about, oh my God, I'm worried about my safety. Well, you weren't worried about her safety, right? Now, and at the end, by the way, when they asked him, do you think you did something wrong? He said, the only thing I did wrong was not keeping the mask on, meaning so that he could be identified, not because of coronavirus or anything along those lines. So he's saying if I wasn't identified, I could have bullied and intimidated her and gotten away with it. So I have no sympathy, zero for the Dawsons, none. Okay, having said that, what is doxing? So is revealing someone's name doxing? No, that is not doxing. So now sometimes people in the mainstream media cry about it, people in the establishment cry about it, sometimes right-wingers cry about it. Oh my God, you know the guys who cry about it the most? Corrupt politicians. You let people know who I was taking $1 million from in a legalized bribe. You doxed them. No, that's not doxing. We said, yeah, that's Charles Koch, that guy, as an example, right? Or Robert Mercer gave you the money. That's the guy you work for. But that's not doxing, that's called information. And that's called basic reporting. So I don't mind their names being out at all. But giving out the address and the phone number is different. And so is the employer thing. I think the employer thing is really hard, and I'm not super clear about what the right thing there is, and I'm curious what you think. But to me, as despicable as that guy was, I vote no, do not give out the address and phone number. I think it's a bad policy idea everywhere. Next thing you know, everybody's going to one another's houses. By the way, the right wing is more violent than the left wing by a lot. So you start a pattern and precedent of giving out people's addresses and phone numbers. I can't see any way that doesn't turn into a disaster. So I vote that no, you should not do that type of doxing, and which I think is actual doxing.
So I think that what we're seeing with the doxing is the type of vigilantism that happens when our institutions are failing us, and our institutions are failing us. I mean, there's no doubt about it. First of all, I mean, from beginning to end, you see failure in our institutions. Number one, the Dawsons, while I certainly don't feel too much sympathy for them given what they've engaged in, I mean, they both didn't finish high school, right? Like our public education system certainly failed them. They're both working pretty terrible, well, were working pretty low-paying jobs. I know that he was a steel worker, but without even a high school degree, how much could he possibly be making as a steel worker? She was working for Walmart. You know how Walmart pays its employees. So there's the lack of action in Congress when it comes to ensuring that people have like normal, stable lives and are able to provide for themselves. I know that his wife, Michelle, for instance, had no interest in politics, felt like politics was not a place for her. She didn't follow it. She felt like politicians had no interest in doing anything to better her life. She became radicalized in the right wing thanks to Donald Trump, because Trump, in a very hollow and obviously deceptive way, pretended to care about their issues, right? So that's what radicalized them to the extreme right. The fact that Congress as an institution has failed us when it comes to regulating social networking platforms, which literally have algorithms that uplift content that radicalizes people in the worst possible way, spreads fake news in the worst possible way. Congress has done nothing about that. Congress has done nothing about the fact that data brokers literally profit off of selling our personal information publicly. Our personal information, everyone's personal information is out there. Every single person in this country can easily get doxxed because our private data is constantly being sold by various platforms, by online merchants. I mean, it's just, again, failure from beginning to end. So do I feel bad for them? That's a different question. Like, it's hard to feel bad for them given that they willingly engaged in that kind of activity and that behavior, and obviously he was interested in just intimidating this reporter, right?
So look, he's unrepentant, and
right.
and she also said, "Oh, our 18-year-old daughter doesn't agree with us." She was super annoyed about it. She's like, "Oh, she's into George Floyd, blah blah blah," right?
Yeah.
So you get a sense of who these folks are, but at the same time, I agree with you. They're real people. I want to come back to that in a second,
yeah.
but I want to let you.
But then there's the other thing, right? They became hardened, even more hardened in their extremism after they were doxxed. So they appear to be unchanged as a result of the doxing, like they feel no remorse. However, there was an interesting point made in the article about others who are kind of like straddling, right? They might want to go to these events, but then they see what happens to right-wing extremists in losing their jobs and all of that, and that discourages them, deters them, and I think that's an interesting deterrent. But at the end of the day, the failure is really about the institutions. We have to think about how easy it is to dox anyone, and do you want to be doxed for your political beliefs? And I say no. I think that it's bad practice, and really the ire needs to be directed toward members of Congress and their insane failure to really address issues. By the way, and police, right? Vigilantism is happening because police appear to be in bed with the right-wing extremists. So I don't, look, I'm not trying to be overly judgmental about the activists, right? They're doing what they think is right. And the reason why they're doing it is because the institutions have failed them, they failed all of us. So I don't know, it's a long way of saying, no, don't do the doxing.
So look, we got a poll on this. I think it's really interesting. A lot of people coming in already in the members' comments. It's mixed. tyt.com/polls. We're curious about your answer. But Anna, I want to establish a couple of things before I go back to a really interesting point you made. One, giving somebody's name is not doxing.
Right, correct.
Right, okay. Giving out addresses and phone numbers definitely is doxing and is wrong. We're agreed on that, right? So that only leaves to me, do you tell their employer or not, okay? So now, in terms of these folks, look, steelwork is a good job. And look, a lot of folks have to work at Walmart, but you just ask them, they're not loving it. And so, but she loses the job, he has to get a lower paying job. He's still apparently some sort of steel worker, but he gets a lot less. They're pretty devastated in terms of the financial fallout from this. And so, but the thing that about how she was not at all political and got into politics because of Trump resonated with me in this. These are not like highly paid political actors in DC that are politicians or lobbyists or consultants, et cetera. They're real people. And one of the things that like the thing that is most unspoken in the American media is people didn't just like Trump because he acts in monstrous ways. They also liked him, or some exclusively liked him for this, because he said he was going to drain the swamp, and he talked like a real person because he didn't talk like a political robot. So even though he's a con man, it gave off the appearance of being real, and he gave off the, even though he's the most corrupt guy both personally and systemically, he gave off the appearance of being anti-corruption, and a lot of real people got energized by that, and they were like, well, at least that guy's not fake. They thought wrongly, right?
Right.
And at least he's not like all the other crooks who we know for a fact are robbing us blind. And the media tells us that they're all wonderful, honorable politicians. And so we know the media is a bunch of liars.
Right, that's another institution that failed us.
The media failed us more than any of them. Because over 90% of the country says that politicians serve their donors and not their voters, 93%, okay? It's the exact opposite in the media. Over 90% of the media says no, they do not serve their donors. They are honorable people having a legitimate intellectual debate. That is so outrageously false that of course a lot of people were like, oh, I guess you're fake news. The minute anybody said fake news, they were like, oh, I instantly believe it. Because those liars have been telling me that these corrupt politicians have my best interest in mind. Can get out of here, right? So now you take those people and they go down a rabbit hole. And they go down this rabbit hole, right? And that rabbit hole leads into dark places where you get in a woman's face. By the way, she's a veteran, right? And went into the military, by the way, out of patriotism after 9/11. Got jaded by the war in Afghanistan. She served 2 tours in, and then became progressive. So you get in her face, you physically you step on her, you threaten her, and you're in this dark place. So one, I got to fight against you. But 2, what's more important is what caused that cancer in the first place.
Yes, exactly. So like the debate is about what Band-Aid we need to use, when in reality, the real conversation needs to be about the root of the problem. That's where I'm trying to, that's where I'm trying to focus, really. Now, again, I don't want people to think I'm like trying to protect right-wing extremists. I'm not, but there is a very real problem in the country with right-wing extremists. They didn't just come out of nowhere. Why is it that, especially during the Trump years, I mean, as early as 2009, when we did that story about the Department of Homeland Security, realizing that there's a problem with right-wing extremism, and then Obama got bullied into getting rid of that portion of the DHS, right? It was already a problem in 2009 and it's exploded since then. The real question is why, and why aren't we tackling the root causes of it?
Yeah, and then finally on the employers, I still haven't made up my mind, but look, I always think, what if the shoe was on the other foot? Because that's the principal way to do it, right? And so what if they got a left-wing protester who had committed an act of violence against a right-wing protester and threatened that right-wing protester's safety, okay? Would I be okay with the right wing telling their employer that they had done that? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And then that's up to the employer to decide what they want to do with that information. And so, look, I get it. I'm in a position of privilege here because
you are the boss man.
Yeah, if they right, no, you say, oh, I'm complaining to Cenk about Cenk. Okay, you're not going to get very far. By the way, unless you're right, in which case I'll say, hey, sorry, etc.
Yeah.
Right? But if look, especially with cops, right? Because they're in charge of other people and they have tremendous power and they have guns, they have badges, they have authority that we gave them. If a cop is a white nationalist and he's out there going in and abusing African Americans, we gotta know. We gotta know. If there's a nurse or a doctor who doesn't believe in vaccines and is lying about taking a vaccine, etc., or threatening people when they're supposed to be taking care of people, we gotta know. So there's a lot of reasons why an employer knowing is important. It doesn't mean that everyone has to be fired, and we should be. Look, it's easy for me to say I don't do this. That is not a tactic I use at all, right? But for the folks who do, use some care because these are real people, as abhorrent as these guys happen to be, and a lot of them happen to be. And I know what you're trying to prevent, but
they might have
so
young
many
kids.
people are in the same class, right? We're all the overwhelming majority of us are poor and middle class, okay? And they want us to fight one another. And so I know that some of those fights are unavoidable, and I engage in a lot of those fights, right? But at the same time, we should be mindful towards the long term, which is not getting someone who works at Walmart fired, but getting the politicians fired and getting the people in power fired. Because the little guy isn't causing the problem, even if they're acting this badly. It's the big guys that are causing the problem. When you got an issue and there's systemic injustice, don't look down, look up. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.